Hey, welcome everybody to the show. It's me, Hugh. It's Friday, getting ready for the weekend. We got Cal joining us as usual, and I'm bringing him in from Vancouver.
Vancouver, sunny Vancouver.
Is it sunny there?
Yeah, we had sun yesterday and today, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're getting more snow today,
Oh boy.
but I don't know. It's not a problem. It's cold out. It's only -5 today.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's warmed up. It's been pretty.
You're not biking still. Are you biking?
No.
Oh.
There's too much snow on the road. Right? I got to walk everywhere now, and it's. But it's not bad. I'm enjoying it. I was even out like in the 11 o'clock on a night walking around outside. It was -20 or something like that. I don't know. You know, they say, because I don't know if you know this, Cal, but Toronto's located on the shores of Lake Ontario, right?
Yeah.
And Lake Ontario is it only freezes over once every 100 years or so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
because it's a pretty big lake, so
it's big, but it's deep. Like Lake Erie freezes over every 7 years.
Okay.
For example, I don't know. I find these things fascinating.
Is it frozen over now this year?
No.
Oh
no. I remember there was one time in the 90s where they said, it could be the first time in how many years that the whole Great Lakes would freeze over.
Superior as well?
Yeah, even Superior. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot colder up there. Like it's quite a bit north of where we are.
But still, that's a really big lake.
I haven't even seen that lake.
No.
You know what I mean? Like I've never been to the shores of it. But yeah. That's where the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. Okay.
Edmund Fitzgerald, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we're gonna have a good show today. We got Timm Stein joining us again. If you recall, Cal, he was here.
Yeah.
When he released his previous movie. And hey Timm, how is it going?
Hey Hugh, hey Cal. Good. How are you?
Good.
Well, where are you located? I forget.
I'm in Invermere, British Columbia. That's 3 hours west of Calgary.
Okay. Great.
Cookies.
Yeah. Are you from there originally?
No, originally Germany. And then I moved to Calgary, lived there for a few years. And then at some point we decided we wanted to be in a smaller mountain town, not in a big city. So picked one close to Calgary.
Sounds great.
I heard you guys talk about the weather. And it's been a very strange winter in our neck of the woods, because usually, we don't get brutal cold, but we do get nice amounts of snow. And it's been absolutely weird that we just have clouds all the time. They call it valley cloud. We used to have sun all the time, and we have no snow on the ground. The ski resorts are in rather bad shape in our area. And I think the forecast for the next week is +8, sometimes sunny, sometimes cloudy, a bit of rain. So, but the government modifying the weather, that's all a conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's not happening.
No.
How could they change the weather? How could they do that?
No.
Not that I miss the -30. I could live without that. Like -10, -15 is fine. But some snow on the ground would be nice to actually make it feel like winter.
Well, we got it, we don't usually get 2 feet of snow on the ground, but we've had 2 feet of snow on the ground for the last few weeks anyways. And
why don't you pack some of that up and send it over here?
Well, I think that's the kind of idea that's the kind of idea the Rhinoceros Party likes. But we're going to have to get a lot of refrigerated trucks. That's the only problem there. But anyway, here we are, and you've got a new film, right, Timm?
Yes, I was working on a second film, follow-up to the first one, and it took a little longer than I anticipated, simply because I worked with another gentleman to do the narration, and then we tried to bring in more visuals compared to the first film. That was one of the feedbacks that I received, that it was too much reading and listening at the same time. So I modified it and brought in more visuals, and just making it all line up took a little bit longer. And then finally, at the end of December, I was able to release it. And yeah, here we are. It's called Canada's Flag: A History of Deception.
So, okay, this is and why did you choose this particular topic? I take it somewhat related to the last film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of the last film, there were discussions and comments with regard to the protests in Ottawa. And I had a discussion with Doug early last year.
Doug Force.
Yeah, Doug Force. And we discussed, well, people are constantly waving the flag. What does a flag actually mean? What does it stand for? And I started researching. I looked it up. And, at first it's just a question you type into Google, just to ask, okay, what's the response here? And the response immediately was, well, the flag is owned by the government of Canada. And I thought, well, wait a minute. What does that then entail? What does that mean? And I started digging and digging. And at some point I said, Doug, I think I need to make another movie about this, because it's important. Because people wave the flag and they think it means they own it, and it stands for freedom and free spirit, and they can use it to protest against the government, but they actually can't, and they don't know it. So I thought, I'm going to look into it and make a movie about it. And it tied into the protest in Ottawa. It tied into other parts of basically submission to a corporation. And yeah, I thought it was important to put it out there. I was sure that there might be maybe positive but also negative feedback, because people seem to love this flag and cherish it and think it means certain things, and they probably don't want to hear that it means something else.
Well, that could be true, but Cal, what do you think of the flag?
Well, we studied the flag a long time ago, and we realized that a lot of what we see is not the flag, because there's certain dimensions that it has to abide by. And so, like CRA putting it up in their corner, that's not a Canadian flag, because it doesn't meet the definition of it. So there's a lot of Canadian flags that are fake, put it that way. So we found that out. So different agencies are using it when they're not really supposed to, I guess, or they're disguising that to make you think that it's part of Canada, but it's not. So we studied that quite a while ago. But the flag itself, yeah, I mean, one of my jokes is, people elbows up and then they go to Canadian Tire and get a Canadian flag and wave it in front of them. And it's like, what do you think that's doing? It's just, you don't understand what it is that we have here. It's not a country. And the flag is part of that whole corporation. And they put it on the city hall here in Vancouver. They put it on the schools. They put it on a bunch of things. And then there's some that aren't real because they're not the proper dimensions and colors. You have to have the colors. It can't be black and white.
And it's a special shade of red.
That the ones that we saw were fake were obviously fake, because you could measure them and go, okay, this is not the correct dimensions, and then, or ratios. Doesn't have to be dimensions, but ratios. And then it has to be in red and white. And most of them are black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah, like if you get something from CRA, it's a little Canadian flag and it's black. It's not a Canadian flag.
Right. Because they don't want to pay for color printing.
That could be it.
Well, they should, considering how.
But why make the ratios wrong too? Like, come on.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's supposed to be twice as long as it is high, right?
Yeah.
So, which is unusual. Like, I think most flags are not like that. They're not quite twice as much long.
No, I don't think the American flag is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't study all that, but the main thing is it has to be certain ratios, and then red and white. and then of course there is an actual red that you would have to use, but
Yeah.
go and measure some of the flags that you think are Canadian flags on documents, and you'll go, So
no, I'm not sure what the legal implications, if any, would be.
well, if they're claiming to be from Canada or an agent of the Canada, then no, you're not. So who are you? And why are you making me do this thing and that thing and pay that and like?
In that regard, I remember Doug telling me there was sometime in the 80s. It must have, sometime in the 80s, there was a not a lawsuit, but the Canadian military, which is really the King's Army, they got reprimanded because they started using the flag even though they didn't get permission from Parliament or the corporation to use it. So I tried to find newspaper articles about that, any lawsuit. I couldn't find anything. There are some descriptions about that on the internet that you can find, but nothing official. So that's why I didn't include it in the film or anything. But I remember Doug brought it up first, that there was something with the military where they started using the flag and they hadn't received proper commercial permission first.
Wow.
Are you talking about the current Canadian flag?
Yeah.
So they needed permission?
Yeah, because it's not it's a corporate entity that owns it. It's like you putting a Walmart flag on something that you want to promote or sell, but Walmart is going to slap you with the lawsuit because you didn't ask them for permission if you can use their flag. It's pretty much the same thing.
And think about it: if you had a logo, and people with guns had it on their shirts, and then something happened, there's liability.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just trying to think through the scenario. But I mean, I don't know what the story is then with the Navy and the Air Force. But I also find it's weird that the Navy a couple of years ago changed their name to the Royal Canadian Navy or something like that. That was just a couple of years ago.
I'm not familiar with that.
And I thought, oh, yeah, Harper was prime minister then. I don't know why they would do that, especially, in the context of the conversation around the Hudson's Bay Charter. Does Canada really exist? Are we going to join the States? And all that kind of stuff.
In essence, if you look at the oath that they're pledging or pledging allegiance, the oath they swear, it's all to the King of England. And if you come to the conclusion that the King of England has no authority over this landmass, well, then it's not really a Canadian military. They're really pledging allegiance to a foreign king, so they're the King's Army. And then you would ask the question, well, okay, if they are on this landmass, then are they here legitimately, or is it a foreign occupation? Like, it leads to so many questions.
Mm-hmm. So the process of creating this film, Tim, did you come across anything? I mean, you tried to explore the whole issue of, what Canada is it legit? Because I went on AI and I asked if Canada was legit, right? And it seemed to indicate that, yes, Canada is legit.
And that's...
What does legit mean, though? Walmart's legit,
Well,
Canada's legit within its own box. It's legit. Yes.
Yeah. Like, so the idea of disentangling ourselves from agreements with the corporation that is Canada. In terms of the ability to escape jurisdiction, say, so you don't have to fund foreign wars by paying taxes, or unencumber ourselves from these situations with the state that's always trying to extract something from us. Anyway, AI seemed to indicate that you couldn't make those arguments in court. Now I know that's a big,
and that's not trying. I'm not trying to diminish you or say that you did a bad thing. But sadly, when people ask AI these days, it is with the understanding of, well, AI should give me the right, truthful answer. And AI is only as good as what has been programmed into it. So even if you look at ChatGPT, there's a free version and then there are paid subscriptions. And it literally tells you in the paid subscription level that the more you pay, the more brain power the AI model gets. So what does brain power mean? It basically means it is a pre-programmed level of knowledge that the AI model gets to use, and it doesn't get to look outside of it. It doesn't know that there's something else outside of it. And the more you pay, the bigger that pool of knowledge becomes. Now, in the free pool, the free model, the knowledge is basically Wikipedia. So what you get from AI is simply, you don't have to go find it on Wikipedia. AI will find it for you, and you get regurgitated what is in Wikipedia. So if you had the time, you could simply go to Wikipedia, do a search, and read it. Or to save yourself the time, you ask Grok, ChatGPT, or any of the other 25,000 AIs out there, tell me this, answer me this question. Now, I've been able to, I've asked ChatGPT those questions. And of course, the answers are pretty much the same as what is documented or described on government websites and sites just like Wikipedia. But then I was able to tell the AI that its answers were actually not complete. I told the AI, well, you're dismissing this, you're not even looking at that. And after about, it was a good 2.5 hours, and I think 37 pages down, the AI then basically agreed with me that yes, based on what you've now told me and the knowledge you have given to me, I would have to make the conclusion that you are correct in your assertions of this is not a properly defined country, this is not a legitimate country. So you can get there by actually having a conversation with AI and taking out the emotional aspect. Because when you get the response that is just written on all government websites, your immediate response would be, oh, this pisses me off. This is so annoying, and you're just going to click it away. But if you have the time to really try to teach it things, you'll actually get different responses. Now, there could, of course, be bias because in the end, the AI may just agree with me because that's what I asked it to do. And so I'm not in the end saying, well, I was right and the AI agreed with me. No, because I simply guided to the AI to give me the response that I wanted to hear. So that argument can definitely be made. What I'm trying to say is I've seen it time and again, even on, especially on X, where I put out information and then people just say, Grok, is this true? And then Grok will say, well, according to legal principles, no, none of this is true. And then people walk away, see, it's all fake. And none of what you say is true. And that's where you think, well, you handed over your critical thinking to a computer to give you an answer. That's not the right way to do it either. If you understand the point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm. So what would be the right way, the best way?
The right way, I think, is to, there's a purpose to use AI, and it is often, I would say it's great to use to speed up finding certain documents. Or let's say you have a statute from Ontario, and you're trying to see, let's say, the Consumer Protection Act, for example. There are certain clauses in Ontario, but you're not in Ontario. You live in BC. So you can ask AI, hey, this clause in the Ontario Consumer Protection Act, can you find the equivalent in the BC Act? So it saves me the hours of reading through the whole thing. That's where it's great, because it can tell you, yes, there's an equivalent, it is worded slightly different, and it is section so-and-so right here, here's the link. Or it tells you, sorry, no, that doesn't exist because they're fundamentally different. So you saved yourself some time. But anything, and even then, I would still then go and pull up the document and say, okay, the section it gave me, does it actually make sense? Is it true? I wouldn't just go with it. But when it comes to anything that is really more fundamental and has constitutional nature, that's why I would say use it maybe as a tool to get a first level of understanding, or a first indication of which direction am I heading into, but always pull up source documents. Always take the documents and read them yourself, and see if you agree with what you were given, or if there's something where you say, well, wait a minute, I don't agree with that, and then dig more, search more. That's what I would suggest.
I mean, yeah, I'm just going to say I've always really liked the Canadian flag. Just like the look of it.
It's nice.
It kind of looks happy. That maple leaf sort of happy looking.
Yeah. The McDonald's arch is nice too. It's a nice color of yellow, and it's, inviting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just you know what, it's really getting me to think about, like, what is a legit country, right? I mean, if we look at the Hudson's Bay Charter, for example, which may be a foundational document of Canada, we've talked about on the show before, but I mean, that was just the king or queen of England creating a document, getting people to sign it. It's a company or whatever. It has its certain legal things, but it's just asserting, making up a title or whatever, that this whole big part of this continent that you're just exploring is now going to be under your control, or whatever part of your empire, completely ignoring the people that lived here, right, at the time. So
they claimed it as a what do you call it? A colony. The whole thing was a colony. So, and then there was 4 provinces. So those were legit, yeah, or at least legit in the way legit is. But it was a charter, and they were doing other charters at that time too, like the East India Company and the Virginia Company of London and the Dutch Company and all these large companies, and they were taking over places using commerce instead of armies and occupying, and you got to pay to keep those guys there. Why don't we put a corporation there, and they'll just make money off of it and occupy for us for the whole British Empire?
And ultimately, they basically, every time someone makes a land acknowledgement, I basically say, no, don't do this thing of, oh, we're on unceded territory. No, you got conquered. That's part of it. In history, you got conquered. Was it legitimate? Was it friendly and nice? Probably not. But that's what happened. And back in the day, that's exactly how it was done. Someone wanted someone else's piece of land. They came in and took it. They either took it by force, or they took it in a more sneaky way of, you can do economic force, or you can do it through ways of cooperation and deceiving people by thinking, well, they still have the land, but really they're not. It's all still been conquered in a commercial aspect. So yes, the people who lived here, they essentially got conquered, and they wanted to resist. So they either got killed, or they were told, go in a reserve. You can still be here. You can have your life, but we're now in charge. And the way it was done was basically the British Empire saying, that's what we're going to do. And what are you going to do about it? And the people who tried to do something about it, they ended up dead. So at some point, the other people said, yeah, let's probably not try that anymore. Let's just, I guess we have to go along with it. And back to your question of what is a country, what defines a country, I think ultimately, some people say, well, it's something that's internationally recognized. Well, not necessarily, because corporations are internationally recognized. Just because something is recognized by others doesn't mean there was a proper process done in its establishment of the thing. The definition of a country is different than the definition of a nation. A nation, for example, can be simply by definition a group of people that are not doing anything hostile, and they agree on certain things and they have the same mindset. That's a nation. They don't necessarily need to have land under their feet. But I think when it comes to the definition of a country, there is actually land involved. And then you get into questions of sovereignty, eminent domain, all of those things, and really establishing that. Is it run by one guy who is a dictator, or is it run really by the people that have a proper constitution? I don't think there's just one definition that if you don't fit that, then you're not a country. There's sort of, from historical context, it has to be carefully examined.
Yeah, I think the whole thing starts with the city states from ancient times, like Babylon. There weren't countries, there were walled cities, and that was for commerce, so everybody felt safe, and that you could close the door to keep people out. And so that's the basis of how a country started. Then a couple cities joined together. There would be a king of each city, and then a king took over a couple cities, and now you're starting to get into what looks like a country, but it's really commerce. At the end of the day, it's protected commerce. And then there's taxes, and you want to come through this gate, or you want to do any business in here, then you got to pay somebody, and all the rest of it, right? It's always been like that.
And that, when you look at the example of Canada, it's very clear that everything is commerce in that regard, just like Cal just explained it, because in the Interpretation Act, land is mentioned nowhere. There's no land mentioned. Everything is based on commercial transactions, on property rights, on trademarks, on you need to ask for permission. Everything is a commercial transaction. So there's really, in the whole definition of what they define as a country, there is nothing talked about in terms of land and those parts of a country. It's all about, you want to come here, you need to have these licenses, you need to abide by these laws and rules. It's all corporate structure.
But even the Hudson Bay Company was granted land. But that's a corporation. It's not.
Well, they were granted the use of the land, not the land itself. The land was always reserved to the heirs and successors of the crown. They were only granted the lease of the land.
That's not in the Hudson Bay Charter. They were allowed to dispose it. So you can't sell something that's not yours. So
they were allowed to use the land that they claimed. So anything where they set their forts on, and anything where they said, we're claiming this for, I don't know, hunting, that's the land that they were allowed to, in the end, keep and dispose of. But in general, the whole land was still defined as a colony, and they paid rent. They paid an annual lease payment. So that wasn't ownership.
That's not in the charter.
Yes.
The only payment they had to do was 5 beaver tails and an elk head.
Yeah, but if you have to do a payment, you're not owning the land. It's like paying property taxes. As long as you pay money on the land, you don't own it.
It wasn't money. It was literally beaver pelts and elk heads.
But it's the same thing. You have to give something in return for being able to be there. That means you don't own it.
Wow. I mean, we've heard people say that about, that you don't really own the land in Canada. We are, you'd have to read your mortgage very carefully, and it's usually about that thick. If when you're looking at your mortgage documents. So, I'm not sure to what extent it's actual ownership or not ownership. And it does seem, I mean, even on the one hand, I mean, how do you own the land? We can't really own the land, right?
No, God owns the land. All of this is all fabrication, but it's levels of it. Like my friend who's passed away, like Chief Capilano, his great grandfather was deeded land out here, like all of Vancouver and down into where Oregon is. So which piece of paper is the correct one, right? And of course, all they wanted to do was kill him and destroy the paper. So it's all like in Canada, there's conflicting pieces of paper and like, well, which one's correct?
If you go back in time, I don't know who. To me, nobody owns the land. I don't know who made the land. I don't know who owns it. That's a totally different question that nobody has the answer to. But ultimately, you come to a piece of land and you think, hey, I want to settle here. I like the location, and I think I can grow stuff here. Let me ask around if somebody else is maybe already occupying it. It doesn't look like anyone's living here, so I'm just gonna stake it out and maybe put up a sign and say, hey guys, just so you know, I would like to settle here and grow stuff. Does anyone have an issue with it? If nobody comes, you just start doing it. You build your house, you grow your crops. And if someone else comes along and says, whoa, wait a minute, what you're growing here is fairly nice. I want a chunk of it. You either come to an agreement and you can do it peacefully and help each other out, or if not, well, that's where people started taking their guns out to defend and then they call it their property. Because it is, as soon as you develop it and you make it your home and you grow something to feed your family, it has value all of a sudden. So that's what they started calling property, because it's valuable to them. And if somebody takes away their livelihood, they want to defend it. So it's not necessarily that you say, this is my land and I own everything of it. Well, technically not. But when someone comes and wants to take it from you, you have to use some sort of a reasoning why he can't just take it or why you should surrender it, right? Unless it's the guy who can come and say, wait a minute, I was actually here before you came. I made the claim, so maybe you shouldn't be here. And then you talk it out, of course. But ultimately, yes, nobody really owns the land, but you own it in a sense of you're developing it and you're using it to support yourself and your family. And if that doesn't infringe on anyone else, then that's totally okay. You can go do it. The whole thing of defending your property and ownership really came in with things like defending it from others trying to take it or stealing, or B, when some dictator like a king comes along and says, wait a minute, this is actually all mine and now you need to pay me a lease. That's what people say, well, no, sorry, you don't. Proof that you own it. Mm-hmm. And then the proof is that you get your head chopped off. That's the proof. So yes, ultimately we don't really own the land. Or, you buy an acreage, you say, this is all mine, I can do whatever I want. Well, maybe you can do whatever you want on your land that you have, but you still don't really own it in a sense of you could excavate down to the center of the earth and just leave a hole because you own it. I don't think it works that way.
No.
Yeah, and it's that's leading me to think about the concept that the person who, because the land just sitting there doesn't do that much. There might be some animals you can hunt or some fruits that you can harvest in its natural state. But when you start to work on the land and develop its capacity to create, wealth, then you've invested your own energy, your mind power into that, and you've done something that has the potential to enrich other people, just by enhancing the capacity of that land. So, I guess we got to be stewards of the land, and to the extent we want to have a good economy, if we can increase the productivity of that land through our brain power and our energy, then that would probably be a good steward of the land.
If you look at it, a community, let's say 10 people that discover an island somewhere, and they say, let's go settle there. And your house is over there, mine is over here. I'll grow this, you'll grow that. We have some cattle and sheep and a couple dogs, horses, whatever. Why would they all of a sudden need to tax each other on, let's say, the land? Why would they need to all of a sudden have to defend it against each other unless someone tried to steal from someone else? Like if you can't live in harmony and talk things over and say, okay, you want to trade? Okay, let's agree on a trade, and we can revisit the value of the trade down the road. It only happens when a third party comes in that wants to be part of it in a hostile way, that people start saying, no, this is ours and you can't just take it. I get it, the concept of governmental things like, hey, you guys have this city and let's have a government that has a police force so that people don't constantly have to defend their property while working, or their livelihood, but we can have a police force that helps them protect it. Well, who's going to pay the police force? Okay, everyone chips in a little bit, and that's where taxation comes in. It's such a bad word, the word taxation, but basically if you say chipping in, everyone chips in a little bit to pay for this police force, yeah, that all makes sense. But as soon as it tips over, where that government is starting to police the own people and working, the police force turns against the own people, and they're paying through the roof for something that doesn't even benefit them anymore. That is then to the point where it all has tipped over, like the frog in boiling water. At first you didn't notice it. You think, okay, I guess we have to chip in a little bit more, until you're being told, no, now you have to pay all of this or we take it away from you. So really, people can perfectly live in harmony without claiming, I own this land. They at least I could. I could help each other out. I know the guy lives over there. There's a good distance between our houses. If he wants to go hunting, just make sure you don't point the rifle at my house. Common sense things. But other than that, we don't need to build fences and point guns at each other and constantly be on the lookout or tax each other's land. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's like the purpose of the government or the collective governance of the people. It's meant to minimize interference with the people. Like when you think about it, if you didn't have that police force you're talking about, everybody would have to do their own security. They couldn't travel because they got to stick around the property and defend it. So, you take a little bit of minimal government, create a police force. You're minimally interfering with the people and actually helping them to live a better life, because those people now, it achieves an economy of scale in terms of that, just creating a peaceful environment where people don't have to invest their own time and energy to buy guns and defend themselves. So it looks like, just going to conclude here before we go to our commercial break, then we'll come back. But it's because I'm trying to go for what's for the root of sovereignty, and it just seems that can be done on an agreement. I mean, we've talked about it before. Contract makes the law. So if people want to agree among themselves to create a common organization that can do governance for themselves, and that would probably be the strongest basis for what a country could be, or what a government could be, just by people agreeing to it.
In a simple form, that's a private membership association. and it doesn't have to be complicated. Technically, you could say Canada is run as a private membership association. So anyone who wants to be part of it, well, you need to get your license, you need to get a citizenship, you want to be part of it, get all these things, be part of it, and then you need to play by the rules. It's not a friendly PMA. It's a hostile one that really sucks the blood out of people and makes them slaves. But ultimately, what you're describing, in the simplest form, is a trust relationship. We agree on simple terms. It doesn't have to be a 722-page contract. It can be verbal. It can be put out on paper. These are our 4 or 5 terms that we agree on. And if you violate any of that, there's a council that will discuss what's going to be done to you in its simplest form. And I think communities and people have lived like this before. It's just when they became bigger and they were more exposed to hostility from the outside that they decided to look at, okay, how can we establish a militia that does the protection, and then how do we pay this militia? And that's where this whole structure then started coming in, and at some point it balloons out of proportion.
Yeah, yeah. The Roman Empire is a prime example of it, because they had to have soldiers everywhere, and you had to pay them. So, and if they weren't there, they would lose their tributes. But the tributes weren't enough to pay the thing. So it was they were at 100% taxation and still wasn't working. So it's it's this power thing that crazy people get into, and then want to just be they want to be God, basically. But that doesn't work in this reality. It really comes down to what Timm said. It's trust among the people. And if we do have some problems, there should be a council, and there should be somebody who can actually enforce something, but it has to be under control. You can't let it be, self-serving the way it is now. And right now they just suck money out and it goes to other countries to help them. And then it, siphons back to their personal bank account. So it's completely out of control.
And I think the problem why it went out of control is because no measures were put in place to have accountability. Or, Doug Force, he would have said, hey, the reason we are where we are is because people are not comfortable anymore dragging these people out on the street and chopping their heads off. That's what was done hundreds of years ago, and it sent a message. You try to screw with us, your head rolls down the street. So people don't do that anymore. That's why these people get away with it. Ultimately, how much more? Obviously, it went out of proportion, and every institution got sucked into it. And really, the question is, well, what can we, the people, do now to not only get out of it, remove ourselves from it, but really solve it for the future? That we pop this balloon, or maybe deflate it to the point where it actually makes sense and we need it to be, and maybe we don't need it to be that way. That is to be determined. But then how do we keep it like that? How do we make sure that whatever we have now can never happen again? And that's part of measures weren't put in place. You look at the United States Constitution. Yes, it states in there that it's the people's obligation to basically take down the government when it starts turning against them. But that's all it says. There was never anything put in, any punishment, saying, hey, you are a delegate, you get to do this work for us, and if you try to use it against us, you will have this severe punishment. That was never stated anywhere, because there was simply the trust of, well, nobody in his right mind would turn against us. Well, they did. And if there's no measure in place to punish them, the people are basically then going to say, well, what are you going to do about it? Yes, I did it. And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we are now. So
that's where we are now, especially with the list of people that were on a certain island came out, and there's no arrests.
Yep.
It's right in our face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it.
I wasn't part of it, but I saw a recent video where Bruce Pardy was asked a question about the 1982 Constitution. And he was asked, well, the documents clearly indicate that that was actually never ratified. So why don't we should be fighting this? And Bruce Pardy's response, he did not disagree with the person that asked the question. He did not provide any counter arguments why that person's assertion was wrong. What he simply said was, it doesn't matter what the documents say. What matters is what the courts say. That is what we have, and that's what the legal structure that we need to live with. The courts determine what the Constitution is and what the structure is. It doesn't matter if the document says something else. So that should really tell you where we're at and where we need to start chipping away.
Yeah, I found that the court was not interested in trying to rebut that either. So he's correct in a certain way. He's just, I would say that's a deflecting thing, and the courts really aren't. If you put it to them, they back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you saying there, Cal? Are you saying that because Kaida AI was telling me, Tim, that it was like the courts have agreed that it's all legit, right?
They've acted as if it is.
Yeah.
So like you can go and make a constitutional argument, but every time I saw somebody do it, the judge was like, yippee, a constitutional argument. I've already won because you're making a constitutional argument. So bring it on.
Wait a sec. How does that work? Or what are the...
Because they know there's no constitution.
As soon as
argument, you're going to... I've already won because you're coming in here with something that doesn't exist, and I know it, and you don't.
So the judge can decide whatever he wants, and it doesn't...
They've already decided. As soon as you put it forward, they just wait till you stop talking.
It's basically you walk into Walmart and you go to the customer service counter and you say, I bought this this piece of clothing, but I didn't buy it at Walmart, yet I want to return it. Walmart's going to say, no, you can't, because it's not from Walmart. But if you bring something that you bought at Walmart, they're going to say, well, let's look at it, and they might still refuse to return. So it's similar to when you bring something to a court in Canada that is part of a corporate entity. A criminal syndicate will not take itself down. And there are court cases where it's clearly stated that judges in Canada assume that everything is in order, everything is in accordance with international law, everything is fine. They just assume that. Unless someone comes and points out, well, no, wait a minute, this is not fine. And then you have to be very careful how you try to make that argument. If you walk in under, I am Mr. So-and-so according to my ID, and I am a Canadian citizen, and I want to challenge this, you've already lost, as Cal explained, because you already walked in as a slave to their system. But if you walk in and you bring in other points where you don't walk in under that statutory personhood, and you basically don't even enter the courtroom, it's a discussion you have in private chambers with the judge, and you bring in inherent jurisdiction, all of a sudden it becomes a different discussion. But I don't think anyone has done that.
I've done it.
You've done it?
Yeah, you do quo rentos, you do everything in the private, and what happens is the judge doesn't want to come in the room. There it is, like boom. So they don't rebut. They don't rebut. They just go silent, or they try to get rid of the case, or they recuse themselves, or they retire, or whatever they could do to get away from it. That's all I've ever seen.
So I guess
they will not answer. They will not rebut. They will not go, you're an idiot. That's wrong.
So then that's what probably needs to be done, is to find avenues, or maybe not avenues, because the avenue seems to be there, but find topics in this regard that tie to specific documents that are brought in with inherent jurisdiction. So it's not discussed in a courtroom, it's discussed in private chambers. And whenever it gets dismissed, it needs to be documented. And I guess more and more people need to do it for it to become loud and visible, that it's not just one guy where the judge says, yeah, okay, go home. We're not going to talk about it. Or here's $50,000, go home. It needs to be more a mass of several people in several jurisdictions, provinces, bringing this in to private chambers of a judge and say, have you looked at this? We need to look at this.
Yeah, you don't have to do it in private chambers. You can do a writ quo warranto, which is a prerogative writ, and the king is the nominal plaintiff on there, and it's an old writ basically to make sure that there's somebody not operating on behalf of the king without authority. It's called quo warranto, means by what authority. So you say you need to answer these questions, and if you're not, I'm telling the king, and I'm telling you, they run from it. Because this is not what we think it is, and they don't want to answer. So the cases go away. Like you said, there's no record of it. But if we, like you said, if more people were doing it, it starts to become not an elephant in the room. It's a herd of elephants stampeding through the room, and you can't ignore it.
And I think what plays into that is, I've had a couple attempts where I contacted officials in the UK. Might have been a head of the Crown Office, someone at the Privy Council, UK Parliament, and I asked specific questions with regard to the structure here. And they constantly divert completely. They don't answer. They basically say, well, you need to ask the legislatures in Canada. We don't deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
So, you can't have it both ways. Like, on the one hand, King Chucky is the king, but when someone asks, they say, no, we got nothing to do with it. You need to ask Canada.
It has to do with procedure. You have to follow the procedure in the Bible where you escalate. By the time I wrote to the Queen, I had defaulted anybody that she could deflect to ahead of time. So there's nobody. I Prime Minister, Governor General, Lieutenant Governor, all of them, and 19 people. So there was nobody she could send it back to. It's now on your lap, and you have to do it because it's your prerogative writ. Not mine. I didn't make it up. It's yours.
Well, what's
it needs to be
doing
done
about it,
people, so that it's public knowledge, that it gets made public more.
Yeah, that's what it's for. And these writs are still available, and even in the United States. So, because it's a common law writ, but if you don't use them, and what the Canada did was pass a statute saying you can't use a quo warranto. Oh, really? Watch quo warranto.
You can still use common law in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's written in their statutes that it's well. And the other thing they brought in is, if you want to make any constitutional challenge, you can only do so if at least 14 days before you make the challenge, you actually let the Attorney General of the province know, or the Attorney General, that you wanted to make that challenge. If you didn't let them know, it's just going to be tossed. Like, okay, you didn't do that. Go back home. You can't.
Yeah, there's procedures.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds fascinating.
They tried to get me to do a constitutional argument, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Who, the court did?
Court lawyers, yeah, all of them. Like, you should just do it. No, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
You can't do quo warrantos. Yeah, I can. Watch. Mail. See, I just did it.
Yeah, they want you to believe that you need to play in their system, and you need to use the crown agents called solicitors or lawyers to get what you want, and they will never work in your favor.
No. They try to attorn you.
Yep.
Okay, we're doing a commercial now, and then we'll come back. and we'll
All right.
continue. So hope you're having a great show, great Friday, great conversation. We'll be right back.
To talk about collateral damage. So many times we have seen people from small islands. I quite proudly hold that title as a small island developing states citizen. When our plight is not heard at the global stage, when people are campaigning outside, there were several peaceful protests have happened inside of COP, talking about acknowledging loss and damage, acknowledging the effects of climate change.
The Doberman Pinscher is a loyal and intelligent companion. Often simply referred to as a Doberman, it is a striking and intelligent breed with a rich history. Despite their intimidating appearance, Dobermans are known for their loyalty, courage, and gentle nature. Originating in Germany in the late 19th century, the Doberman Pinscher was bred by a tax collector.
Not during shows and awards, and I totally agree with that.
I agree. I'm the type of person, I don't mix politics with business, so in that case, that's their business too. So
Just
estoy
say
de
thank
acuerdo,
you.
like use your personal platforms to advocate for your political views y todo, pero not during the award shows.
No, yo pienso que eso es para el equipo, eso es para la gente que te dio ese momento. Why are you there first,
Exacto.
¿verdad?
Acknowledge the fans or the people who nominated you and gave you the award. De acuerdo.
Y en eso pasó últimamente con Billie Eilish.
This amazing landmark takes you to the top of the Ericsson Globe, and it did require 42 tons of steel to reinforce the globe's roof. Is that what those guys are doing? Once at the top, your view from the specifically designed glass gondola is pretty fantastic.
First of all, in this case, OSHA did do an investigation. So we have the results that we did our Freedom of Information Act requests to OSHA, and then we had to take an appeal, but we got lots of really important photographs. We learned that OSHA actually issued violations related to what happened here and that were caused of it.
On other cases, on other incidents?
On this site, they did an investigation after he fell.
Be special, we're alive, and it's the greatest gift that we have right now for what's happening in this Indian time.
Under the pressures of the life and it up.
Reggae month is a thing when we lift me at after to the Ministry of Culture.
I'm very, very proud of the industry. All the artists have gone up there.
Where is Miracle Bradshaw? 15-year-old Miracle was last seen in Bartlesville, Oklahoma on February 2nd, 2024. Authorities believe Miracle may still be in the local area or could have traveled to Tulsa. If you know the whereabouts of Miracle, you are urged to call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
You are watching Carrot Vision.
Okay, we're back here on the show. We're having a great conversation. We got Timm Stein from the producer of Canada's Flag, A History of Deception, and we will put the link to that down below. But this writ of quo warranto, I think, needs a little more examination here, just because Timm said that nobody's using it, and it sounded like a good thing to do. And Cal, you've already done it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me ask you.
I did it for others too. I sent it to a guy because I was in prison. I was held for 60 days, and when I got out, I started helping my cellmate, and I sent a quo warranto into the prison system for him to sign and have it notarized with the wardens. And the mail got lost. They didn't want to give it to him. Huh?
Conveniently?
Oh, conveniently. Yeah, it was signed for by the, wherever the box goes. So they got it, but they didn't take it down to the prisoner. So I wrote to the head of the penal thing. I said, yeah, there's some mail fraud going on. There's a 14-year prison term. The Queen is subject to the Postal Act, and therefore you are too, because you're under oath to him. And I got a phone call from inside the prison. Said, "What did you do?" Because the wardens were down there and they were shaking.
Okay, so what is this writ of quo warranto? I mean, what is the function of it? And when you used it, Cal, what were you kind of in the middle of dealing with?
Well, I was dealing with my own personal cases when I first did it. So what it is the history of it. I think it's James 1. As the British Empire was expanding and they didn't have communication, anybody could go anywhere in way off in, South America or Far East Asia or whatever and say, "I'm Lord blah blah blah, and I am now," just how Tim was talking, "and now I'm in control of all this land here, and all of you farmers have to pay tribute to me." And how would you know that? And how would the king know that somebody is saying that they're there and then they're just taking money and he's not getting his cut? So, which probably happened. So he made this writ called quo warranto and gave it to the people to challenge that any authority. And if they don't, the king now can come in and do something about it. So he's the nominal plaintiff on it. He's literally also on the writ.
You mean
like, who
James
are you?
First? James the
Well, the king or the queen or whoever it is. They're the nominal plaintiff on there. So you're the plaintiff and they're a joint plaintiff saying, "Who are you? Show me where you got status from me, like from the king as a nominal plaintiff." So that's what I did to Canada or the court or whoever it is.
So can they just say, "Well, here's our 1982 Constitution," as a response?
The problem is the 1982 Constitution is what is part of the things that I put in there. It says, look here, like the Constitution wasn't ratified. So who are you? Okay. So they can't come back with that. I've already. That's one of my allegations. So they don't rebut. This is what I'm saying. They go silent and they run and they judge, drops the case or quits or.
Does this go to the provincial superior court? So in Alberta, it would be the Court of King's Bench. Previously was Superior Court. Or does it go to the federal court or does it go to the Supreme Court?
It goes to whomever is claiming to be in the right of the king. They're all under oath to them. So it's like I'm an agent for the king. This is how the whole thing is set up. Okay, yeah. Show me.
But they can't. So to be most effective, though, I mean, technically it would go to the mayor, the local mayor. It would go to the receiver general. It would go to any minister.
Whoever is claiming something over you, like you got to pay me because I'm this. Show me how you're that, and that's all it does.
So you would file. Is it basically? There's quo warranto, you file it in a court against, so that guy, minister, for example, it would be the respondent and you would be the applicant in the case. But it has to be filed with the court, right? Because if you just send it to the minister, they can basically decide not to even respond to you. It has to be sort of more official where, and I guess you can try that. You can send it to them.
You're allowed to, like the court. There's a piece of the court that's meant for the common law, and that's called the notary public. So the notary public is the interface with that thing. You don't have to send it to the court. If the notary signs it, then it's filed and it's in the public. So, and then you have two witnesses. Always have witnesses on everything, and boom, it's it. It's a private thing you do at first. Like, who are you? And then the Bible says you go to your brother in private, and if you don't get an answer, then you take two witnesses. That's the notary and your two witnesses, and then you escalate, and then it'll end up on the king's desk. So you tell them all the way that this is where it's going to go, and you're putting the king's oath in jeopardy. And some of them run, and some of them go, "This is nonsense," until it hits the queen's desk, and then I'm telling you, there was an explosion when it hit her desk.
So when let's just pick, and she's dead now. Look at it. When you let's just pick an example. Let's say let's pick the receiver general. I'm gonna send him this writ and ask him to respond to it. I would guess you give a certain time, let's say 30 days.
30 days,
And
yep.
If you don't get any response, you send a follow-up. Please respond.
Yep.
If you get zero response, would you then, your next avenue would be maybe a writ of mandamus with a federal court to compel. Okay, and if then you get nothing out of that, I mean, that usually should give the official enough of a warning to respond. But if you get nothing, where do you go after that?
Well, the thing is, what is it that's bothering you in the first place? If that goes away, then you've won. You don't have to have the win on the record.
Okay.
You see, that I wanted to be left alone, and my life was imposed on them. Like I was looking over my shoulder all the time. I lived in a very tense, stressful life, and I just was like, get out of my life, and they did.
I mean, ultimately, let's say in my example, the receiver general, if the receiver general came back and said, okay, fine, I'll resign, I didn't really win anything because he will just be replaced by someone else, but the office and the system, the institution is still there doing its thing.
Absolutely, but they won't be doing it to you.
You think they'll so you think they'll back down and take me off their tax roll?
Yep. Here's the thing: it's if you have a defaulted quo rento, they're the ones that are claiming something on you, not you. You're not just arbitrarily going at them, going, "Who are you?" It's like, no, you've done something to me. You're pushing on me in some way, and I'm going, hold it. I don't like this. Who are you? And if you don't answer in 30 days, then I'm going to assume this, and this. Now that entity still wants to get whatever they're trying to get from you. They take you to a court, and now I've already got a default. The judge is going to go, I'm not touching this. Goes away.
Okay.
So it's not a win in their jurisdiction. It's not like an argument and there's record of this and there was a ruling. It's more like, get that out of here.
So
you carry on with your life.
Is that
You
something
can't
that
justify their legitimacy?
It can't.
Now, is this something that we could do? Because it sounds like a fairly straightforward process that doesn't involve a ton of money. It doesn't involve 700 pages of filing evidence and whatnot.
No.
It doesn't even involve solicitors or lawyers.
Nope.
Is this something that can be written up in a template form where we can get people engaged to really do this and send in thousands of these writs?
What are you trying to do here, Tim?
There has to be a cause of action, though. You don't just send the writ out of the blue. So there has to be something happening in order for you to
collecting taxes. Isn't that?
Yes.
Everyone is affected. Everyone. Maybe not children, but everyone.
It's more. I would say stop paying. No, I shouldn't. I'm gonna run the thing at the bottom.
delete the last 2 seconds.
Yeah. So you have to decide, like going to what you said earlier, Tim, you have to kind of decide what you're going to do. Now, if you don't want to pay taxes, then don't pay them, but they're going to come at you. That's when the quo rento comes.
Okay.
So you got to do what you want to do within reason. Like, don't dig holes to the center of the earth, but it's when they go, no, you can't do that. Then you go, ho, I'm not harming anybody, and you can't prove who you are, and I'm not obeying you, and I will escalate this to the king.
So to send a writ of quo rento, there needs to be some action that happened against you. You can't just go to any minister and question, hey, you, I want you to justify your legitimacy in your office. You can't just do it from that perspective. There must be some action against you first.
I would say so, because going back to how it originally started, it was a fake lord would come into an area and just claim to be a lord and then grab money.
That's what's happened now.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happening now. Yes, it is.
Well, it is and it isn't, because within their defined corporation, these ministers are not doing anything wrong. They are all part of a corporation. Within the corporation, they're fully legitimate. It's just that we are saying, well, we don't want to be part of that corporation. As soon as we're not part of it, against us, when they start to collect our stuff, they're doing illegitimate, illegal things. So that's how, as long as you voluntarily and unknowingly remain in their system, they're not doing anything wrong.
Nope. If you want this, it's your choice. You want to shop at Marmar? You want to eat Big Macs? It's right down there. You can walk right in. Actually, you can drive through and get a Big Mac. I'm not getting one.
Okay, wait, Cal. So do we have to do something else, though, too? Because I guess, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, when the government is coming at you to ask for taxes to be paid, they're addressing that to the capitalized name, which is the corporation that was created with our birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
So do we have to do anything else? Like, do we have to do like something like a status correction or something that they know that we're not that entity?
You can, but you can put it to them to even try and say that you are. They don't want to talk about that. You see, so it's all in how you frame everything.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that I'm acting on the birth certificate. No, I'm not going to say that. Nope. Okay, well then,
Hugh, in that regard, what I have done, I have provided the Attorney General for Canada and the Attorney General in the province that I live, as well as the Governor General for Canada, with a claim of recognition. It's a fairly lengthy document that lists court cases, it lists international law, it lists obligations of the state. And in that claim of recognition, I've basically let them know that I am not attached to this birth certificate person that they created. I am a living being, as is evidenced not by a birth certificate, by a certified copy of the registration of live birth. So as you, I hope you know, there are two different documents. One is the paper copy that your parents filled out at the hospital. And that one, the original, they took away. The only thing you can ever get is a certified copy of it. And usually, sometimes they ask stupid questions why you want it. So there's some secrecy attached to it. I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole. I don't really care about it, but I know they're two different documents, different meanings. And you got to pull out this copy of registration of live birth, attach that to your claim of recognition, send it to whoever claims to be running the government and tell them the jig is up. I'm not participating any longer and we're done here. And I'm giving you 30 days to respond. If you want to, I don't really need your response. But if you have something to say to the contrary, to try and claim that, no, you are a slave, I'm giving you 30 days. Send it to me. That's what I've done.
Did you give them an affidavit as well?
Sorry?
Did you give them an affidavit?
No.
Okay.
An affidavit again is playing in their system. I'm sending them something outside of their system. Now, I could have this all sworn in front of a notary, put his stamp on there, and then I'll send it to them. In the end, the outcome is similar. If they had anything to say against it, they would email me. They would send me mail saying, "We don't recognize your document. You are still who we say you are." They've done none of that. It's been months. So that to me is a record of, okay, they've acknowledged it silently because they haven't disputed any of it. Now that I declared that, now I can, as a next step, I don't need to going forward. So what this does is going forward, when you walk in with one of these writs, you don't have to first establish, wait a minute, I'm not who you claim I am, because they should already know that because it was sent to them months ago.
Right.
Okay. Well, this sounds like we're making some progress here. We're actually going to know more and have some better ideas when we finish the show today.
Well, I think it's important, that we don't just sit there and wait for some knight in shining armor to come and save us all, because then we never learn. Then it'll happen again. What really needs to happen is that everyone needs to go through this and free themselves. And part of that might be sending all these documents to going through the process of sending 9 different documents to go up the ladder to really free yourself and stand in a lawful jurisdiction that trumps all of their jurisdictions. And only when you get to that point, you have basically woken up. And it doesn't mean you need to see all the horrible things they apparently did to children and islands they visited. I think those are all distractions.
Yep.
What is really important is that people see how they were deceived, how they are where they are. And some people like it where they are and they can remain there. That's fine. But whoever doesn't want to be there and wants something better, you can't just sit there and watch the latest hockey scores and have someone do it for you and, hey, you're free now, here's your certificate of freedom. No, you have to do it yourself. And the roadway and the roadmap is actually not that difficult.
No.
But it involves some reading and learning. And I think that's where the majority of people need to go, and I think they want to. We just need to show them the path.
So I think... sorry, Cal, you go ahead.
And there's remedy even in merchant law. Like, you just have to understand it, because they're not telling you how it works. But once you understand how it works, and they turned you into a merchant with the birth certificate, they're stuck again. Like, use what you got to understand what it is first, and then you use what the remedies available. And they're always on the losing side because they're deceiving, lying, stealing, raping, killing. They cannot win. But we've got to be engaged. Like Tim said, you can't just sit there and hope the white hats are going to fix things, because they're not.
No.
Okay.
It's really understanding what has been done to you, accepting it, taking responsibility as well, and then realizing, okay, they've dumped me down on purpose. They made this this commercial language so complicated that I don't really understand it yet. I need to learn how to read it. They've done this on purpose. So I need to take the time to understand it. Once I do, I can turn the tables. I can use it against them.
Exactly.
Okay, this is exciting stuff. So, but before I go to commercial, I just want to clarify. So, if you've done the claim of recognition, as you talk about, Tim, then are you permanently removed from acting as your merchant?
No. You basically let them know that you're no longer going along with it, yet they will still put it on you. They will still say, you need to file this, you need to pay this. And that's where then you bring in the next writ, because all of a sudden they're doing something against you, an action against you, where they're claiming an authority. That's when you can say, wait a minute, I'm now questioning your authority because of your action. They could simply go away based on my claim, of course. They could say, okay, let's take this guy off the tax roll, let's take him off the property tax roll, and he will leave us alone forever. And I would be fine. I would leave them alone, they leave me alone. But the thing is, they don't leave me alone. They keep going because they want to say, well, you sent out this claim of recognition, but you know what? We don't care, and what are you going to do about it? They're testing you, they're challenging you, and that's where you need to be up to the challenge and say, you claim that I need to send you an income tax return. I claim I don't need to do this, and I'm now questioning your authority. Bam, here's a writ of quo ronto. Now explain yourself.
Exactly. Well, and they can't. That's the funny thing. You think that they can, but they can't.
The only reason they can is because they use threatening, intimidating language that people don't understand, but they feel threatened and they back down. As soon as you understand the language, and as soon as you remove that fear that no, they're not going to immediately put you in prison just because you said you're not going to pay taxes. That's not a thing. As soon as you remove that fear, you're on a higher level where you think, oh, okay, I know what I have at my disposal to go against these guys. And yes, it's going to cost me $16.32 to send it by registered mail. But guess what? I'm establishing a record here. And these guys at some point will not be able to explain themselves. I'm just going through it at the moment where the Receiver General has completely ignored any of my documentation, phone calls, even where they promise it will be returned within 72 hours. I recorded the calls. Nobody gets back to me. So guess what? I filed a writ of mandamus in federal court that basically tells the Receiver General, you must respond to this guy. Doesn't matter what the response is. They could just turn me down, which I'm pretty sure they will, but they must respond because that's their duty in the office they're in.
So if they don't do that, they don't respond, what results then?
Well, then basically, they should be removed from their position. So if I get to the point, if the writ of mandamus, if the judge says, yes, the evidence is clear, the officer needs to respond, you have certain days to respond. If I still get no response, I would probably report back to the court and look at, okay, what are my next steps? Because obviously this agent in this office needs to be removed because he's failing his oath of office by not responding to me.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. We're going to do commercials now again, and then we're going to continue this conversation. Are you excited, Tim, about what is possible now?
Yes, I've always been excited. It's painful at times, and it's tiring. It's frustrating. There are days when I say, I don't want any of this anymore, but I find it exciting. It's good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we'll be back in a couple of minutes with Tim and Cal.
Okay.
So what would you recommend for someone that has maybe S&P exposure, 40% in the top 10 names? There's equal weighted indexes. Does that make sense? Does over something like a cap weighted index?
Yes, they do. So SPY, for example, is the most popular index that tracks the S&P.
So the discovery of Newton, and even to this day, and Newton is not unique. What makes it unique, it's the only one that we found. And this is what makes it so extraordinarily precious. Now, in the early 1970s, when we excavated at Newton, and subsequently as we began to analyze the artifacts in the cemetery, and we went into the literature, began to discover more and more as the years went on.
You'll want to have a spot to place your gnocchi as you cut them, so go ahead and dust a parchment-lined baking sheet with plenty of flour, then dust your work surface with even more flour. Transfer your dough onto your floured surface and divide it into 3 or 4 pieces. You'll work with one piece at a time and just keep the other pieces of dough covered with plastic wrap. Now use your hands to roll the dough into a long log.
What this does is begins to rewire the brain to be able to look at problems in a more positive way instead of stepping back from them or being afraid of them, being attracted to them and wanting to solve them.
That's so true, because when we can reframe having a problem sometimes means that you're reaching a new level of mastery, right? Like if I never developed a new skill, I would never.
There are a lot of areas in North Yorkshire which don't have access to mains gas. Or customers who live in properties in those areas are reliant on heating their homes with either oil central heating or storage heaters. And for a number of years we've been installing air source heat pumps as a replacement. We found the portfolio is a really good system to enable us to plan for the future. So
So what are you doing up here now? Is you gonna roll this out like you're gonna roll out a roadie?
stroke is the most serious heat thing. Your organs can shut down. It can be life-threatening. So we really want to prevent people from getting to that point.
Particularly at risk are the elderly, children, athletes, people with chronic medical conditions like diabetes, and those who do physical labor outside.
People that say can't afford air conditioning or don't have air conditioning can be at risk. Some research shows that poorer communities are often in hotter.
You are watching Carrot Vision.
Okay, we're back. So, Tim, we haven't talked very much about your film.
That's okay. It's more the message of the film that matters, and not the details of the film.
Yeah, because you're making these films to explain the situation to people and to hopefully, I guess, trigger people to take action, right?
Well, trigger people to question things. I don't want them to, and that's why it's made very clear, I don't want them to just blindly believe what's stated in the film and start plastering those messages all over. I want them to question things and start thinking for themselves and maybe look into some of this stuff and see, oh, wait a minute, that is actually interesting. What the film is saying, is that actually true? And maybe they'll find some evidence to contest or dispute some of the things that I mentioned in the film. And then I say, by all means, email me and let's look at it. Maybe there's something I missed. But the message is really for people to question the structure that has been built around them, to see if it's legitimate and does it actually work in their favor? Do they benefit from it? They need to question that, and that's what the message really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, like I say, we're going to put a link down, and people are, of course, welcome to go see the film and learn from it, draw their own conclusions, and take whatever appropriate action. But let me ask you about this. Just, I think you touched on it in the film about the, and I've always been curious about this since I first heard about it, is when the flag has a gold frill around it.
Yeah, I've tried to read up on that. I've tried to get information. There is some conflicting stuff out there. Maybe Cal knows some more. There are theories that it has to do with admiralty jurisdiction, when the gold fringe around it or not, and I haven't found anything that will really support that theory. Other parts spoke about when it's in official capacity, then the gold fringe is around it. So I couldn't find anything that supports that either. So that's why I didn't talk about that in a sense. And I've never seen the Canadian flag with the gold fringe around.
No?
No.
I think I have.
No.
No.
I don't think you have. The American flag has it, but I don't think the Canadian flag has it.
Okay, so what do you know about all that, Cal?
The same lore, but there's no definitive thing you can put your finger on.
Right.
There's something I could quickly take a look. There's a team of attorneys in the United States. It's called teamlaw.net, their website. And I think they have something about it. So if you guys quickly want to chat, I can try to look it up to see if we can get to the bottom of it. Or we can take it away and maybe do a little bit of reading over the next couple of weeks and then come back to it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Most of that stuff, once I sort of took responsibility for that, I turned into a merchant and then learned a little bit of merchant law, then it didn't matter. Like none of that stuff mattered. Like crossing the bar, I'll get on your ship or I won't get on your ship. I don't really care one way or the other, because there's still rules that you have to abide by. And now I know them, to a certain degree, enough to make you in a bad position. So that's all it is, really. It's not that I agree with what Canada is or I like it, but I don't try and pretend it's that what I was told as a child. Like that's not going to that's not going to work. Waving a Canadian flag, it isn't helping. It's causing harm at best, but it's definitely not helping. And these Olympics and everything, all these types of things, and the colors and the flags and the logos are all, they do these things so that it's ingrained in us that we think we're American or Japanese or Canadian, and it's just not true. We're literally living on plantations, and so they want to make sure that the slaves are accounted for if they cross a border and into another plantation or they move, etc. So, and the Hudson Bay Charter says our plantation. Like, that's the document we really want to read, because they weren't hiding it back then. It's very clear what it is, and yet it was able to have armies, courts, cannons. It's like Walmart with cannons. Okay. Do I agree with that? No, but that's how it was, and so you had to deal with it. Now they got the RCMP and they got this and that and everything else, but they still have the courts, and they still are allowed to make their own laws, because that's in the charter too. But you have to know, don't argue the laws, or don't argue that that's incorrect. Just say, hey, according to your charter, this cannot be repugnant to the common law. And that's when they're like, whoa, that's too much, and I'm not touching that.
Where's that? In the writ? Is that in the writ of Quo Warranto?
That's in the Hudson Bay Charter.
Right.
So when Trudeau did the thing in Ottawa, I went, okay, this is not a country, and there is no, he didn't infringe upon people's rights and freedoms based on the charter, because that doesn't exist. So I said, okay, so you obviously know that, but your actions can't be repugnant to the common law either in the Hudson Bay Charter. He's gone. They shut everything down. So this is what we have in our document for Canada for all our notices of liability. So every Canadian politician is getting that Hudson Bay stuff. You guys don't exist, and you need to, and you in particular need to get up to speed, because you're probably being lied to too, because this is strict liability if there is nothing backing you. Like, you got to understand that, and this is why the judges would run out of the room, because they did understand it.
That's the part that sometimes
I'm not taking the liability on this.
The people that work in these government positions, they get our paperwork, and sometimes it puzzles me how brainwashed they are, that as soon as they get our paperwork, they immediately think they need to fight against us and shut us down. If they simply took a minute to realize, wait a minute, I am just a slave as this guy. I'm even worse of a slave because I work for the government. That I have even less rights than the other guy. We're in the same boat. I should be fighting together with him. I shouldn't fight against him. But they never have that thought process. They think they work for someone who's in the right and we are in the wrong, and we need to be shut down. That puzzles me all the time.
Yep. It's interesting. But if you stand up and hold your ground, they do back down. And sometimes, like I had to do 60 days in jail to prove my point. I don't, and that was probably extreme, because I don't think they're pushing like that anymore, but they will push, but you've got to hold your ground.
I just don't know at what point you become too loud for them. I mean, if you succeed, they back down and you simply walk away, that's one thing. But if you then mobilize 100 other people to do the same, at what point do you become too loud for them, where they need to pull the card off? Just for example, all of a sudden, overnight, your computers are taken from your house, and the next morning in the news, your name is on there and you got caught with apparent child pornography, and there goes your reputation and your name is gone forever. They didn't have to kill you. That's a very effective method to get rid of you and make sure they silence you. Just wondering if they're still playing that game.
Well, yeah, you want to make sure, as much as you can, that you're not involved with child pornography. If you're going to put your neck out there, like
no, not involved.
Yeah.
That's that's how they get rid of people. That's how they silence people.
Well, I mean, we had arrests in Montreal on our document, but they had to appear 3 months after the arrest, and it was a Monday. On the Friday, they said, we're not proceeding.
Okay.
So criminal charges, and enough information was, because that we know they're listening. They're listening right now, and I know that you're listening. So that's the thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they are the criminals. Whether they understand it or not, whether they're deceived as well. But enough of them at the top are purposely doing what's happening. And this is that thing on the island shows the level of what these beings are capable of, and they feel that is correct to them. Like they don't have any remorse whatsoever. This is what we believe, and we are allowed to do this. It's basically do as thou wilt, which is the satanic sort of main premise, and that's what we're dealing with worldwide.
And Hugh, just to give the listeners a small example of what can be done to really educate yourself and empower yourself is, I had a couple of years ago an RCMP officer show up at my door, not identifying himself, just asking for my name, and then making the claim that I hit someone with my vehicle. So I recorded the whole thing on my surveillance camera with the audio, and I asked him, I hit someone. And he said, well, you hit another vehicle. I said, that's a very big difference, someone or a vehicle. And I asked him, where's the evidence? And he said, well, that will be discussed in court. I'm now going to give you a ticket for hit and run. I said, well, you can't, because you haven't established anything if there was actually a hit and run. So he proceeded to give me a ticket. And the next day I went to the registry and said, I'm contesting this ticket. And they said, well, it's going to take 6 to 12 months before you have a court appearance. I said, I don't care how long it's taking. That's not my problem. I simply said, I'm contesting it because it's fraud. It's a wrongful ticket. So time goes by, and all of a sudden I get the letter that there's a court appearance. Now, what I found out is that at least a month before the court appearance, you actually have to be provided with full disclosure. You have to have a chance to review every evidence that they have on you. And I didn't get that. I phoned the RCMP. They said, oh, we don't have it. You need to phone the court. So I phoned the court. The court said, we don't have it. You need to call the RCMP. So they're playing stupid games. And with all my recordings and the fact that I never got full disclosure, I knew I had them. So I went to the courthouse, and there's the RCMP officer with one of his buddies who was twice as big and broad as he was. And they're saying, oh, so you're here for the ticket? I said, yeah, isn't that why we're here? And I had my binder under my arms, and they looked at it. They probably thought, oh, shit, he has something. And then he said, well, we can cut the ticket in half. And at first I thought, do they have the authority to actually do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at them and I said, no, I don't care about that. I want to go in there and discuss this. So then they look at each other, and they look at me, and the guy says, well, in that case, the ticket will just be stayed. So I asked him, what does that mean? Well, it'll just go away. We'll just let it go. So you can go home. It's done. And that's when I had some, call it divine intervention, where my brain said, do not go, do not leave. Because if I had done that, they probably would have gone into the courtroom saying, oh, he didn't show up. Mm-hmm. So I said, no, I'm here to discuss this. I'm here to discuss you. We're going to go in there. So we walked in, and sadly, since the RCMP is the one that made the claim, they are the ones that get to talk first. Mm-hmm. So the judge asks, and the guy gets up and says, well, the ticket is stayed. And the judge looks at me and says, you're free to go. I didn't even get to say anything. I really wanted to expose him. But at the same time, I thought, you know what? This is already a win. I walked out there with the biggest grin on my face because I knew they had nothing. And I knew they tried to intimidate me. Yet I was strong enough to go in there and really look at them, look in their face and say, you got nothing, and we're here to talk about it. It felt very empowering. And it seems to be just a little thing. It was a little ticket. Some people probably would have said, just pay it and make it go away. But this is exactly how you start fighting back and empowering yourself to stand on a different level with these people.
Correct. So that's a prime example of it. And literally, you can take that exact premise all the way to there is no province, there is no country. And you stand there in court, they're like, no, this has got to go away somehow. And then you walk out. It's literally that. So you want to do the processes, you want to have all your binder so that you had defaults. You went to them in private, so you followed the biblical principles because they'll get you on that without telling you. And then you have all your defaults all ready to go, all in the common law, all in the private. Nobody knows about it except the two parties. And now the judge does, because you put it in the court if they're going to proceed. And the judge goes, not in my court, not today. And that's the end of it.
So just getting back to Timm's concern about, could they just come and grab all your computers or do worse than that to you? Like, has Carney gotten any NOLs?
Yep.
So he's okay. So he's in the middle of it.
So the people in Montreal, that they took all their documents, took phones, etc. They all delivered them back. So the RCMP, after reading and reading the documents and also just talking to the people, like, you're not what we expected. You're like normal people. We were expecting terrorists. And so, and then they read the documents, and that probably went all the way up the chain to the whole RCMP, and they're like, we got to get out of this. I don't care who it is that's bringing this forward. We're not going to take the hit on this. So they started backing off to the point where the next arrests, come down whenever you want. Tuesday, Wednesday, come on. Yeah, and we'll arrest you here, just at your own speed. And then the last guy, they just didn't even phone him. Yeah, we're going to go quiet over here. So this is how it went, because the truth is in the documents, and there's liability in commerce. These things are all corporations. So you use whatever they're using against them. It's like a keto, and so you want to learn some common law and you want to learn some commerce, whether you like it or not. Commerce is nasty, in my opinion.
So it's kind of like because there's a clause in the Power NOLs that forbids or basically deals with the issue of somebody acting outside the law to get at you, right?
Yeah.
So now if you think about a scenario where, say, you're dealing with the Soviet government or something like that, and you did this, chances are they wouldn't really respect the law to the extent that they would deliver all your stuff back. And versus just grabbing you and throwing you in jail because you're a troublemaker.
Put it this way: we have one man in Hong Kong by himself sending the NOLs, and he's getting very polite letters back. They answer every time, but it's always very polite and very, we're not sure what to do, but
so he's dealing with the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party policies, right?
Well, he's in Hong Kong, so but it's there, but
because they're
So it's because it's commerce, and commerce is their thing. We're using their thing against them, and they can't say you can't, because then they can't. And it's our ignorance that allows them to get away with this. So they turned us all into merchants with the birth certificate, and then didn't tell us anything about it, and tried to pretend like law merchant doesn't exist. Well, once you understand that it exists, whether you like it or not, you use it, it has that effect on them. the judges don't want to be in the room because it's their signature on the order, not the party CRA or the police standing there. It's the judge who's going to have to sign this thing. And I'm like, nope.
So this law merchant or this commercial law is global. It is the global law, and these global powers that be need to use that because that's part of the agreement that allows them to do everything that they're doing too. Whatever the agreement is between them and God, they've got
our agreement. They've got our agreement that it's Canada and they can do all this stuff, and it's all in commerce.
But you always have the option, if you're a party to a contract, you always have the option to go back and say, wait a minute.
Fraud.
Either I wasn't disclosed with all the terms here because you only gave me those 2 pages and then you slipped another 18 in afterwards after I signed it, or you failed to properly explain things to me, or whatever it is, like there's something that is false with the contract. You can go back and say, wait a minute, I didn't agree to this. You weren't honest. There is no contract. It was never established. They just make it extremely difficult from a language perspective and from the procedural part to do so. But people actually do things like this in a small scale on a regular basis. Someone who gets a credit card bill and there's a charge that they didn't authorize because maybe their card got compromised or someone else in the credit card department maybe used it. They're very quickly phoning up the credit card company and contesting and disputing it. And then after a few days, usually the charge is gone. So they're already doing this on a regular basis when it comes to small things like that. So it doesn't mean that they don't have the capability to actually do this on a not necessarily bigger scale, but a scale that maybe seems intimidating and not dangerous, but they're scared of it. But you already have your conscious capability to do this, to contest something and question something that was done to you because you're saying that's fraud. So it just needs to be extrapolated to governmental institutions.
Exactly. How I put it is, if Walmart has a bunch of policies, and if one of their policies is every person in this city has to shop here twice a month, and then they start issuing tickets because you didn't shop there, you would go, what? But and you would be appalled at that. But this is what Canada is. It's what it's doing.
I wish they would do that. That would wake up people. That would be fantastic.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick last break, and then we'll come back and conclude here with Timm and Cal. And I don't know. I'm kind of excited about what has seemingly so far come out of this program. So we'll wrap it up when we come back in a couple minutes.
120 staff produce in carbon around 1 million wind and rain deflectors per year.
This here is the finished product straight from the machine. And that is beforehand.
Oh, yes.
Before and after.
It's a rudimentary process. The raw material needs to be softened.
Let's get to it. Let's see if there's other materials we can use. Here's some tape.
There's a blue here.
Ooh, Dad, let's use blue.
Okay, let's clear this.
A top of it. Yeah, we'll put that stuff in after.
Meanwhile, Patrick and his teammates are going strong.
Okay, this is the head, right?
Yes. See the body?
So should we put stuffing in it? Because
Now add your hot peppers to the hot oil and the onions. And at this point, you're gonna sneeze a lot, and maybe you wanna cook this outside. I'm actually outside cooking this in my mom's outdoor kitchen.
because this is gonna run all your guests away, so just be careful. You wanna add your garlic to the pot as well at this point. Add a little bit of the Chinese seasoning as well.
She didn't leave her daughter with her brothers either. No, everywhere she went, she was an extra ticket. Yes, she didn't worry about nothing. She was protecting her daughter, honey. Yeah, she was, because she ain't got time for nobody touching her daughter. We ain't got no business. We ain't doing that. That's not happening. I protected my daughter, okay, from predators. So I don't know what's wrong with you, mama.
Let's get to it. Let's see if there's other materials we can use. Here's some tape.
There's a blue here.
Ooh, God, let's use blue.
Okay, let's clear this.
A top of it. Yeah, we'll put that stuff in after.
Meanwhile, Patrick and his teammates are going strong.
Okay, this is a head, right?
Yes. See the body?
So should we put stuff in there? We have to
And you see how it's getting a beautiful brown color. Now I'm going to add in 2 pimentos chopped, 1/4 cup of onion and 1/4 cup of bell peppers or sweet peppers, and give this a mix. If you wanted to lightly season your veggies, you can. I'm just going to wait for everything to cook up properly, and then I'll taste and see if I make salt.
How can someone take up the form of a pig? You're dealing with a being whom God has never stripped of his power, but allow him the freedom to do what he wants, to demonstrate his own powerlessness with all of his powers against God.
You are watching Carrot Vision.
Okay, really not a lot of time left here, but we still have a few minutes here, and want to make sure that everybody knows where they can go watch the movie Canada's Flag, A History of Deception. And I found this on your YouTube. Is that a good link for people?
Yeah, YouTube will work. Also, if you just go to the website, www.canadaillusionfilm.com, it's on there as well. I'm also on X under Canada Illusion, and Rumble, you can find it as well. And even Odyssey. Not many people are on Odyssey, but I thought in case it gets axed on YouTube, then there's Odyssey as a backup.
Well, I think Odyssey's a great option because it's theoretically censorship-free anyways.
Is anything these days censorship-free?
Yeah, well, that's the big problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other discussion we can have, but it's good to know that it's on Odyssey is all I'm saying. Is there anything else you want to let people know before I still want to get your input about a couple other things, but just so we have enough time, want to make sure you give people all the info you want to give them. So is there anything else, Tim, that you want to?
No, just in general that no, don't take things word for word for what's stated in films, documentary films, whatever it is. Always go in it with critical thinking and question things. Look up documents, read them for yourself, come back with questions. If you're just going to come back with insults and mockery, I'm not interested. But anyone who has proper questions or has other documents where they would like to discuss, or an idea for a third film of what are other things that maybe should be exposed and talked about so that people know about it, by all means, contact me. Email is canadaillusion@proton.me, or you can find contacts on the website for X and Telegram. The message is really, do your own thinking, do your own awakening. Nobody else can do it for you. But there are people here that you can come to for guidance or questions you have to help you with your answers.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, just based on our conversation today, it's like, and within the context of our, that we need to assert our freedoms and push back on these agendas and win, right? It just seems that we might have some tools here that we've identified here today that we can use. And the other thing being that really the fundamentally most legal basis of any nation would be based on contracts that the people are willing to engage in from, consciously, not that they're just roped into it and, by implication, accepting these contracts. It would be great if everybody was actually quite conscious about what they're entering into.
Yeah, and I would probably not call it a contract because, especially in light of what we're waking up to, the term contract gets dragged into a direction that people just, I want nothing to do with a contract. I would just simply call it a trust, because everything is a trust. I trust you, for example, that you're not going to take this video and put it on a pornography website because I want nothing to do with it. So there's always a trust. And it not necessarily has to be put in writing. There's just a fundamental level of understanding between two people or more, and that is a trust. And if you just have the feeling that maybe you want something in writing, well, you can put some things in writing, and that becomes your res of the trust that everyone agrees to. So it can be very simple. It doesn't have to be as complicated as a commercial contract.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, it gives actually, with that realization, it can give every group a lawful basis for self-determination as a group.
Yeah, because in the end, we don't really need things like citizenship, passports. Like, what is that really needed for? If you just have a nation of people that understand basic principles, like we don't steal from each other, we don't kill each other, we treat each other with respect, then you don't need things like a passport. You don't need things like a driver's license. You don't even need things like insurance to protect yourself from others' actions. If you're in a trust or a private membership association in that regard, there are already rules established that if you are harmed by someone else, there will be a tribunal to discuss it and see if any damages can be awarded. So this whole concept of all these licenses and applications and permissions can really be condensed to very few, if any at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's time. It's time for a reset.
Yes.
Yeah.
The right reset.
Yeah, the reset's coming. We just need to be active.
In charge of it. Yeah, we got to put, and it's not just enough to say no. I think, we're going to need, when I say that, use your writs to get, it's not enough to say no to that. We're going to have to figure out to governance as well, so that we develop systems that aren't all about exploiting people and extracting wealth from people and making lives miserable. Okay, so that's it. We're out of time, guys, but that was a great conversation. We got the YouTube channel for the film at the bottom, and of course, we'll put the links down below, and empowermovement.org. Always a great place to go and kick back against these guys and just hang out. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, thanks, guys. It's been great.
Right.
And
Thank you.
Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday for more here on Caravision TV, thatchannel.com. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
See, and then I always get stuck. Where's that damn thing that I have to press? The button. Here it is right now. The button. Okay, guys. See you next week.
See ya.